What's going on, everybody? Today we are talking about Doctor Who Season 1, Episode 5, Dot and Bubble. This is the second Doctor-lite episode that we are getting this season, as last week's 73 Yards was an episode that primarily focused on Ruby, with the Doctor only appearing at the beginning and end of the episode. Episodes of Doctor Who that do not prominently feature the Doctor or his companions can, on occasion, not be very good. I'm thinking an episode like Love and Monsters, but it has been known to work well on occasion. I know Blink is an episode that I really love and that a majority of the fandom really loves as well. And so coming into this episode this week, especially considering that we had a Doctor-lite episode last week, and considering that we only have 8 episodes in the season, I was not really sure how this was going to play out, and whether or not it would be a waste of an episode, essentially, because I feel like there is so much more that I want to see from Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson. But that being said, I do think this was a great episode. It's an episode that I ended up watching for a second time because I didn't know how to take it on the first watch, and I really felt like it warranted a second watch to get a full picture of what was going on here. The episode follows a character named Lindy, who is this young, rich, white woman who is living on this planet called Finetime, which is essentially this utopian society where all of these other rich white kids are able to essentially live without worry. Everything is always fine on this planet all of the time, and these kids basically have free reign to do whatever they want because they only have to work for a couple of hours a day. Seemingly, when they're working, the only thing they're doing is feeding information about themselves into the AI technology that is kind of the cornerstone of Finetime. And so you really have an episode that, coming into it, I thought was giving off Black Mirror vibes. I really like Black Mirror. I think it is a great television show that really takes a look at our society and the way that people behave, and definitely how technology plays a role in all of that, and the disastrous things that kind of result from us being so engrossed in technology and ourselves. And I really felt that that is what the episode was giving off in the beginning. I think that Russell does a great job of creating this society where you are dealing with a bunch of rich kids, trust fund babies, that have this planet all to themselves and really have no responsibilities. They don't really know what the real world is supposed to look like because the world has changed and it has morphed into a society where if you are rich, you get to live a life of luxury where you legitimately don't have to do anything. You don't even have to learn how to walk yourself. You can just use an AI technology that is able to guide you completely through your entire life on this planet. I thought that this episode was doing a very good job of showing this idea of classism and really developing these characters as people that have never had to do anything for themselves, that have never had to think for themselves, and don't recognize the privilege that they have in getting to live this life that they are living, not having to kind of go outside the bubble of their social circles and really confront what is happening right in front of them. And I thought that that was a really poignant social commentary that it seemed like the episode was really trying to deal with here. What is really great about this season, even though I haven't loved every episode, I haven't loved every aspect of what it's doing, is that you can tell Russell is coming into this new era really trying to do new things. A lot of people have been talking about how there are a lot of big swings that it seems he is taking here in this new era, in this new season, and I really agree with that. I think this episode is definitely unlike anything that we have seen in the modern Doctor Who so far. And it was really interesting the more that I watched the episode and realized what we were actually dealing with here and what the conclusion of the things that were happening in the episode were. I think it is a really well done social commentary, not just on classism, but also racism. Considering that this is a Doctor and Companion-lite episode, I think that Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson are really used well here. I think it is pretty amazing that we get this really well layered episode about a topic such as racism, and it is handled in a way that even though the Doctor and Ruby don't have such a strong presence in the episode, when they are on screen, and especially at the end of the episode, we get a sense of uneasiness. We get a sense of something not being right here in just the short amount of time that the Doctor and Ruby are on screen. We've seen episodes of Doctor Who where the Doctor loses, where he is not able to save the people that it is he's trying to save. And we have seen a situation like Midnight where the Doctor isn't able to save the people that he wants to save because of their own hubris. But I feel like in an episode like Midnight, there's more of a focus on the fact that the Midnight entity is incapacitating the Doctor, so there's no real way for him to take back control. And also, that's an episode where you have the Doctor losing partially because of the fact that he's getting a bit too big for his britches. He doesn't really know how to handle that crowd very well because he's a very clever guy and they think he's very arrogant. They think he's very cocky. And so that's why they don't want his help, because of the way that he's acting that is kind of coming off-putting. And as an audience member, you can feel that he is not vibing well with the other characters in that episode. You can understand, even if you think that they should be listening to him, why it is that they aren't. Here you have a situation where the Doctor is being very upfront about the danger that Lindy and her friends are in. He is really being kind for how much Lindy is calling him an idiot and for how much she is putting the blame on what is happening in Finetime on him. No matter what, he is being very patient and very generous in a situation where it's really not warranted. And so to have that final scene where Lindy and her friends are essentially saying, no, we're not going to come with you in your spaceship and let you save us just because of the color of your skin, we can really sense the Doctor's heartbreak, knowing that these people are about to go off into the woods and meet an untimely fate, and it is just because they don't like the way that he looks. He's finally realizing that this is one time where he's not going to be able to save people because they don't want him to. And I think this is a new feeling for the Doctor. I think this is something that, as I said, we haven't seen in modern Doctor Who, at least not enough, not quite in this way. I mentioned before that this episode was one that I had to watch 2 times. I really feel like I didn't quite get the impact of the episode. I didn't really understand the themes that it was going for until I watched it a second time. I was compelled to do that because of the discourse that I was starting to see online about the other themes that it was leaning towards. Of course, the racism and the microaggressions that we see in the interactions between the Doctor and Lindy. And so I really felt like that warranted a second watch just to see if there was any perspective shift that I had with the episode. And I did. I really felt like Russell wrote the script in such a way that you could take either meaning from the things that were going on, at least in the beginning. I feel like we're meant to question why exactly Lindy is acting the way that she is toward the Doctor. We could attribute it to being this stuck-up rich kid who doesn't like being outside of her social circles. We could attribute some of her reactions to the Doctor due to the fact that he's basically infiltrating this chat and is essentially what we would consider to be, in our world, a spam bot. So there's a ton of different things that, as you're watching it, you could really kind of wash away the idea that she's intentionally being racist towards the Doctor and just kind of explain away her actions as, oh, that's just a snooty rich kid, or, oh, this is something that maybe she has a reason to be wary of the Doctor's intentions here because of the way he enters the chat here. But I think once we get to the end of the episode, that is kind of where you start to put the pieces together and you kind of start to see the way in which her reactions to the Doctor are not in line with the way that she is interacting with other people. Even Ruby, someone who she is also very rude to, gets a different treatment than the Doctor gets for essentially doing the same thing. I think there are so many layers to this episode that allow the ending to work, and on a second watch, I really started to put the pieces together, like when you realize that Lindy is really disgusted that the Doctor and Ruby are occupying the same space, but then you realize that her friends, the twins, are also occupying the same space, and she has no problem with it. I think it is very interesting that Lindy is so trusting of that singer guy whose name I am forgetting right now. In a way that she isn't with the Doctor, and it is seemingly because he is a white guy, whereas the Doctor isn't. There's just so many things here that I think work, and I think once you understand what the episode is going for, that the episode is so much stronger for that. I do want to say that just because I had to do a second watch, I don't think that that means that there's anything wrong with the episode in telling the story that it's trying to tell. I think it is a very strong episode. I just think, as I said, that because I am a person that has never experienced microaggressions in my life, that I'm in a position where I didn't see certain things earlier in the episode that made it so when we got to the end of the episode, I was not surprised, but I was also kind of shocked that that is where the episode went. Typically, an episode like this, an episode like any other episode of Doctor Who, we're in a position where we want to root for the protagonist. We want to really see them turn over a new leaf, especially if they're a protagonist such as Lindy, that is this very snooty person that doesn't seem to have consideration for other people. We are usually put in the perspective of, well, maybe whatever they're going through in this episode is going to encourage them to change. And I don't think that we get a lot of times in a show like Doctor Who where we don't see the character change. We see them stay exactly as they are throughout the entire episode. And I think that that is something that is really interesting that we get to see in Doctor Who here, because it is something that is really straying from the form of other episodes of Doctor Who that we have seen. All in all, I really enjoyed this episode. Like I said, I think with this being a Doctor and Companion-lite episode, I didn't expect it to really be this poignant episode. I didn't really expect it to utilize the Doctor and Ruby in such an effective way where you don't really notice they're not in the episode that much, and when they are on screen, they are really killing it. They are really showing us the impact of what is going on here. And I think this was a really strong episode. I think the back half is going to be really good. I think we are kind of off to a good start here with something like 73 yards and then leading into Dot and Bubble, that I am enjoying the ride more than the beginning of the season. I feel like the beginning of the season was a little bit more vibes based, and this second half is more about getting into different topics that are things that Doctor Who hasn't touched before, and doing things with the format that are things that we haven't seen before. And so this is really a good season. It is not my favorite season of Doctor Who by any stretch, but I think we're off to a really good end point here, and I am looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season shapes up. That's going to be all for me for this week. Remember that if you like what you see here, you can give the video a thumbs up, and you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel, making sure you hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I post a new video. Till then, see you later, guys.